So we'll start with intros. I am Mary McLean. I am one of the two chairs of the Chord Connect series this year, alongside William Dixon. And I am going to introduce our two guest speakers for today, Dr. Shane Yu and Dr. Maria Tisson. So Dr. Shane Yu is the founding program director of the emergency medicine residency at St. Joseph's Hospital, part of the Baycare Health System in Tampa, Florida. He leads the development of a forward-thinking residency program, overseeing curriculum design, faculty recruitment, and the cultivation of a strong educational culture. A native of West Virginia, Dr. Yu earned his medical degree from Marshall University and completed his residency at Advent Health, East Orlando, Woot, where he served as chief resident and was named Resident of the Year. He holds leadership roles in the Florida College of Emergency Physicians and is active in national organizations such as ACEP and SAEM. A frequent speaker at major conferences, Dr. Yu has received numerous awards for his contributions to medical education, including the ACEP National Junior Faculty Teaching Award. He also holds a master's degree in medical education and focuses on innovative teaching strategies, including gamification and learning science. And Dr. Maria Tisson, originally from South Florida, is a board-certified emergency medicine physician and a passionate educator based in Orlando. A proud alumna of the University of Central Florida, she has dedicated her career to advancing medical education through creativity, compassion, and innovation. And with a deep enthusiasm for gamification and a strong track record in academic leadership, Dr. Tisson is committed to shaping the next generation of emergency physicians in a dynamic, engaging, and supportive environment. Her contributions have been recognized with multiple honors, including the Educational Excellence Award and the Resident Educator Award, reflecting her dedication to fostering a safe, inclusive learning space that empowers trainees to thrive. So please give a warm welcome to both Dr. Yu and Dr. Tisson. We're proud to have you here, and we're really excited to hear this session.
Great, thank you so much. We are thrilled to be here in the company of other educators that want to bring about interactive and engaging strategies for teaching our residents, our new learners, especially this time of year, reflecting on finishing one and starting right back into another academic year. Like Mary said, my name's Shane Yu. I'm here with Maria Tasson. We have only actually worked together very little, but it's funny. I graduated from Advent Health and then became the director of education at UCF. And Maria graduated from UCF and then became the director of education at Advent Health. So we kind of know all the same people and have worked together on a few projects, which has been great. And hopefully through this, you'll see our passion for gamification, one of the cool educational strategies we utilize a lot. Would love to kind of hear everybody's inputs and thoughts and things that you've tried and learned along the way, so we can really all leave this hour knowing a little bit more and ready to try something new with our new learners. So let me see if it's gonna, there we go. A couple objectives just so we have something measurable we can take home from today. We're going to start with some terminology, discussing the basics of what gamification is and how we can apply it to these specific learners. We want to talk specifically about mechanics and how that relates to some theories of motivation, and especially why this can be successful when implemented in the right way for your learners. We won't go too much into evaluation tools. We'll talk a little bit. Obviously, that's pretty variable depending on the type and size of the games that you're going to instill, and of course your type of learners as well. Though we will touch on some of those factors as well, and we can of course explain more as we go along. I should say from the get-go, we want this to be super interactive and informal. So if you do have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to unmute and just shout them out. You can also use the chat feature. We will be kind of monitoring that as we go along, but we definitely want as much engagement as possible as we go. And no disclosures. So first up, we'll start right with the engagement and interactivity from the get-go. What is gamification, or what does it mean to you? Has anyone here tried it before? And what do you think before we even dive in? I'll give you 20 seconds or so to share or put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute. See if I can see the chat as well.
I can monitor the chat, Shane.
Okay, you got that?
Yeah, so we have Kahoot as an answer.
We will definitely touch on Kahoot.
Yes.
I'm a
Any other?
target. Keeping learners and teachers engaged and interactive and trying to make it more active learning.
Perfect. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a couple variable definitions, but I want to take it back to the very basic. Like, what is gamification? Not only in education, what we're going to spend our time today talking about, but really how it's made an impact on our daily lives. I mean, you see a couple examples here. Candy Crush, right? That took the world by storm back when I was in college. During the pandemic, Pokemon Go, Peloton. I used to be good at it. I've fallen off the wheel a little bit. But all of these things that you don't really think about, but it's using mechanics of gamification to entice us or motivate us to do some other thing, whether it be exercise or play or interact socially with others offline. Gamification is really a part of our daily lives. Uh, the term I use or the definition, I think kind of interchangeable, but really any use of game design elements when it's not a game context. And one of the first examples of this was American Airlines back in the 80s. They came out with their frequent flyer, their American Advantage rewards program. So that was a mechanism for rewarding people brand loyalty. But you can think about it, it has some of the mechanics of gamification, right? There's leveling up, earning points or miles that are redeemable for rewards. So makes perfect sense that that's a style of gamification. Getting a little closer to our target, this was one of the first science-backed gamification games. They created this computer-based game where anybody could get online and work on protein folding, so like the tertiary structures of proteins. And within 10 days, the players, non-scientists who were just having a good time playing a game, were figuring out things that had stumped scientists for more than 15 years. So again, a little motivator can go a long way. And like I mentioned with American Airlines, we see brand loyalty gamification in our everyday lives all the time. I think everybody probably has a credit card, points or miles, maybe Starbucks rewards, whatever it may be. Think about the day-to-day uses of things that really use those gamification elements just to get you on board with their products or their brand. When I kind of alluded to, I shouldn't use this example anymore because I've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit. But during the pandemic, I was really good at Peloton. And I like bringing this one up specifically because it talks about a lot of those different mechanics that make games engaging. I promise we'll get to how this plugs into education soon too. But understanding the game design, the elements, the mechanics that make it motivating and rewarding for the participants. Things like leaderboards, where you can kind of compare yourself to others participating, badges, and getting certain records and achievements, and seeing how you fall along the spectrum. You can also set your own goals, and maybe it's to get this badge or to get this many miles in this example, but gives you that little bit of autonomy and goal setting as well. So, how does it work? We've alluded to motivation a little bit. And I say the real why behind that is self-determination theory. And probably most of you are a little familiar with this, but SDT basically says that all of our motivations are driven by either intrinsic or, a desire to do something just for its own pursuit. I want to be a great physician so that I can take care of my patients. I'm knowledgeable, I'm comfortable, or it's extrinsically motivated. And in that case, it's either you're doing it for a positive reward or to avoid a negative consequence. And obviously, we want to really get that intrinsic desire, that intrinsic motivation to learn and to be the best we can be just because that's what we're supposed to do. And as you'll learn throughout the day, if you cautiously use some of those extrinsic motivators, we can actually ignite this intrinsic desire to be better as well. A couple things, why we really enjoy games in general, and it ties back to that SDT. We want autonomy, we want a personal goal setting, you want the social aspect and experience, and all of that comes from the game's design itself, these mechanics that we've alluded to. Because things like levels, points, badges, leaderboards, they help to kind of clarify the goals or what we want to do with the game. They provide feedback as you're going along, and they do allow for some kind of autonomy as well in your personal goal setting. And you can, as educators, I'm sure we've heard all of these terms before, right? Goals, feedback, autonomy. So you can see how gamification can start to play into that. Even with that being so, there is a wealth of literature about gamification in education. Primarily K through 12 education, we see a lot, and it does show great outcomes in terms of changing behaviors, knowledge translation and retention. Even some of these articles are based at the college level, the undergraduate education. But when it comes to medical education, there's really not a whole lot of strong literature quite yet. It is growing since we first started talking about this a couple years ago. But this is really kind of a call to action for all of this. When you do it for your learners, don't forget to share the results. First measure and then share so we can all get stronger and better from this. So let's take it back to the chat, or if you want to unmute and share again. Again, we're still not at education yet, just in general, in life, if you sat down with your family or your friends, what games do you enjoy? What do you like to play? I'll give you a couple seconds here to type in or share.
We have Monopoly, Smash
Okay.
Up.
Monopoly, I'm familiar with, right? Very clear mechanics, turn order, goals, a little bit of autonomy as well, a lot more than other games, right? You decide what to buy and how to do it.
We have Mario Kart, chess, chronology, 4-in-1, Pictionary, Settlers of Catan, Switch Sports, Cards Against Humanity.
This is excellent. I'm hearing card games, board games, video games, and we're going to touch on a lot of these different categories when we show you some specific examples as well. Let me turn it just a little bit. So those are some great games that we all enjoy. Now, what games have you used to teach in the past? Any success stories or maybe something you've tried that didn't go as well, and we can help adapt or workshop here a little bit to make better for the next time.
We have Jeopardy. I think that's a classic.
Jeopardy's a great one. We'll touch on that for sure. Any others anyone's tried?
I tried a Trivial Pursuit board game and that went well. And then one that didn't go as well was trying to do New York Times strands to create associations between words. And that just ended up being frustrated and complainy for everybody. So I had to apologize.
That's perfect. Trial and error. That's how you get there. I think we actually have a picture of your Trivial Pursuit, so we'll be sure to point that out too as we go along. Okay, well, keep some of these things and be thinking along the way as we're talking about some of these examples today. What have you done that's worked well? What haven't you? And maybe there's some little tweaks and things that we can do to make it more successful. I do agree, some like Jeopardy you all mentioned are really easy, really straightforward, low resource. You could implement it tomorrow and make it pretty good. There are others that do take a lot more thought and maybe aren't perfect. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why as we go along. So we're going to break it up now and talk about a couple different types of games. Everything from longitudinal, we're talking year-long games that kind of pit teams against each other in a residency program or medical school, all the way down to really simple stuff like Jeopardy that you could do tomorrow with low resources and minimal input. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Tassone, and we'll kind of explore some of these. I will just say again, don't get discouraged. We're kind of starting with the highest resource stuff first. So don't think, oh God, I can't do that like right now. That's perfectly fine. Start small and work your way up. But we want to show you the whole spectrum of what's really possible when you get comfortable doing some of these things. So I will let Dr. Tassone take it away.
Yeah, so like Shane was saying, we want to go over things that we've done and how we've used them before, kind of give you all some new tools that you can have in your toolkit whenever you're providing educational content for your residents, your medical students, whoever it may be. So starting off with longitudinal games, this is one that we have both implemented various times at our individual institutions. And so we have East EM Wars, which was the original one, how it started. And really, it's EM Wars is a longitudinal game. It goes throughout the entire year, in which residents are we promote engagement and participation amongst multiple dimensions of their learning. So we start off the year by separating residents evenly into teams. We both have used 3 teams in the past. It just depends on how many residents you have. And we try to make it even by PGY level and then also like demographics as well. Throughout the year, they will earn individual points that then contribute to their overall team points. So there's a lot of different ways to do this and to implement this game. This is just what we've done in the past. And I'll share also some changes that we've made over the years. So residents will get points, again, using that extrinsic motivator for completing things that they need to complete anyways. For example, their Rosh Review weekly quizzes. They also have to complete asynchronous assignments. For example, we use ALEMU. So when they complete that on time, they get points for participation in block challenges and competitions. They'll receive points for logging their procedures as well. This is one we'll touch on more. And then for overall games like Jeopardy, or it could be any other game that you incorporate in your didactics. And then for some of the bigger event days, we also award more points for those competitions. So based off of how they place, they will earn small prizes throughout the year, kind of leveling up. So things like t-shirts, coffee mugs, gift cards, and then eventually the winner at the end of the year is awarded the trophy. So here is how we've done it. You can do just simple teams like red, yellow, and blue, and put these up in the resident rooms in order to show them how many points they've earned. Or you can use different things like a Harry Potter theme we've used before. And then most recently in like this year, we're finishing up the first year of EM Wars Mario edition, and we've kind of like themed everything, our t-shirts, everything around these different characters. Here are some of the residents with their medals and trophies in the past. And then here's the data that we've gotten in the past. So in the first year, we really just focused on surveying the residents both before and after implementation of the longitudinal game. And we noticed that there was an increase in motivation and engagement, with participants reporting that the experience was enjoyable and appropriately challenging. In this evaluation, it was more like a Kirkpatrick level 1, which we only just focused on their feelings, their satisfactions, and reactions to the experience itself. And then in the following years, we actually were able to track the amount of procedures that were logged and how having these extrinsic motivators in these games changed their behavior. So now focusing on a higher level of research, so more like a Kirkpatrick level 3-4 analysis, where we looked at their behavioral changes and how this may have impacted like performance outcomes. And so what we have found was that there was an increase, a 200% increase in procedures logged. But when looking at the billing data, there weren't more procedures performed. So this means we changed their behavior in regards to logging procedures and getting credit, but we didn't change necessarily the clinical behavior. They were still performing the same number of procedures. They were just now actually logging and getting credit, whereas before those were just going to waste.
All right, I will take it over here with some event days. So like Dr. Tasson said, those are longitudinal high resource kind of over the course of the entire year, if you will. Definitely, I think if you're motivated and you want to try it, go for it, jump right in, and we're certainly happy to help. We're going to go a little bit down. These are still pretty big resource, but kind of single day events instead. And we'll talk about some of the specific examples we have, and I think many of you have others to share as well. So I picked out these three to share. These are all things we've actually done a couple iterations of now throughout our curricula at both institutions. Um, the first was disaster day. I think we all kind of have different ways we go about working with disaster drills and emergency medical services and management of mass casualty events. Um, Historically in Florida, we do these regional disaster drills with the whole hospital, which I think does have a lot of great value in how we actually interact with the teams during disasters. But we were realizing we weren't really getting the educational components. Like, how are these things organized? What should we be thinking about? How do you actually triage people and let faculty have direct oversight and input to make corrections and give feedback right along the way? So we created Disaster Day, which was a 4-hour simulation event between both of our institutions. So we had about 60 learners. We divided them into 6 different teams, and then they rotated through several stations throughout this day. You can see a couple pictures here. One of the rotations, the top left corner, was a triage scenario. So they had 20 or so patients out in the field. They had to go look at their initial vitals and responsiveness and triage them into the correct category and help prioritize where different patients should be transported based on their injuries. In the bottom left was a trivia-based station. So this was more focused on the in-training exam and the board exams. So really working on solidifying that kind of knowledge. And then over the right was one of the MCI simulations. So they actually worked in our simulation lab and had, I believe, 4 different patients all arrive simultaneously with different injuries. And they had to use limited resources to be able to deal with those different scenarios. And of course, these were all games as well. So trivia obviously was kind of like a Jeopardy setup. So they got points for their teams. For the triage station, they got points for doing it correctly. So getting the correct answers and how quickly they were able to get to those correct answers as well. And then in the simulation scenarios, they got points for doing the appropriate critical actions that had been pre-identified in those different patients. And then in the bottom right, you see Dr. Sasson actually created an escape room that was mass casualty incident themed as well. And again, for correctness and speed, they were awarded points there. And then you see the big pictures and the trophies and all of that kind of stuff. We brought it all together, debriefed as a group, and made it a kind of a social and networking event as well. So got knowledge, skills training, and a little bit of fun along the way. And that we've done a couple different times now. The board review carnival, switching gears a little bit. This one was focused specifically on board review. We've done it for the last 4, at least maybe 5 years now, in the week before the in-training exam in February. And as childish as it sounds, it is like a carnival. Like, you remember when you went in like 5th grade, right? So we had a visual diagnosis duck pond. They had these little ducks with a diagnosis on the bottom, and they would have to match them appropriately to the image or EKG or radiographic finding that matched that diagnosis. We had the prize wheel. This was just giving you a question based on the section of the EM model that you spun. And the buzzword beverage pong. Yes, beverage, not beer. But they would answer quick, rapid fire buzzwords. And for each correct answer, they got a little ping pong ball to throw for points. And this is a great example of, making new iterations and improving as we go. We had huge success with the buzzword beverage pong and with the visual diagnosis. The prize wheel, not so much. We didn't really get the engagement that we had hoped. So that's actually changed a couple times over the years, and we've implemented new games as we've gone along the way with better feedback from the residents and better outcomes. You see, again, the same kind of elements. We're obviously focused on our educational objectives first and foremost, and the mechanics support that. But we try to make it fun and interactive, and people have a good time doing it as well. So it kind of encourages them to be a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more creative and interactive in their learning. And then the final example I'll share today is wilderness medicine race. Many of us are probably familiar with like Med War, which IMRA puts on at ASEP each year. Kind of think of that on a smaller scale, and also that all of our learners could participate in regardless of their athletic ability. So although there was a little bit of a race component, nobody was going 12 miles through the desert wilderness. It was more like 50 yards from station to station. And again, our objectives were really focusing on environmental and wilderness medicine topics. You see a couple pictures there. Again, our learners answering trivia questions, so kind of board style knowledge questions, getting to practice procedural skills, and doing it all the while having fun out in the environment, getting a little break from the monotony of the hospital and the classroom too. We've done other things like that. We've done a holiday themed gamification exercise. I know, I think Maria will talk about a couple others that they've implemented as well. But again, bigger resource with a little bit more forethought and planning, but something that could be easily accomplished in one day, even at one institution, and kind of take it from there. I'll pass it back to Maria.
So before we move on to the escape rooms, other things. So for the board review, recently we did like a balloon, where they have to like throw the dart at the balloon and they get some questions, like Rosh review style questions from that. This year we did like a bat where they would spin around, like Dizzy Bat would spin around and then would have to answer questions. So made it a little bit more complicated for them to answer those questions, but we get a lot of really good feedback every year on the board review series. And I think both of our institutions look forward to knowing that we get together every year for the same style events. So anyways, moving on to the escape rooms. I think this is probably one of the ones that people think of and think it's the most daunting. But hopefully we can break it down for you guys and show you how you can do just a simple escape room to a super elaborate escape room. Um, so in this one right here, this is one that we would consider more simple and very easy. This was a toxicology tabletop escape room in which the residents had to solve various puzzles to lead to one ultimate puzzle at the end. Although it was simple, it's still more engaging than a traditional lecture style, and encourages collaboration as a team. This is an escape room that I made for like a board review at the end. I've also done it for medical students. So in this one, you can see in the bottom picture, there's various bags. Each bag has a lock on it. And then it's basically the answer, one answer, multiple choice question leads to the other until you get through. I think for this one, we had 23 questions. The overall theme here was like operation, but it was kind of a twist on the game operation where instead of removing the body part from the person, here it was the program director. So instead of removing it, each bag contained different body parts that you returned back to him in order to get him unstuck or untrapped from the game. The residents really like that. And like I said, we've done it for medical students too. We just made sure the questions were a little bit easier, and they also enjoyed it as well. And the winner was awarded based off of who completed it fastest. And then here are different types of puzzles that you can use in your escape room. All of these are easy to buy. You can buy them at craft stores or on Amazon. There's locks with keys, numbers, letters, emojis. There's different type of like hidden puzzles. There's books that contain hidden messages in them. There's a ton of different ways on how to do it. And there's a lot of resources online on how to implement these. And this was the most immersive escape room that Dr. McLean and I created this past year or a year and a half ago now. And it was a neurology themed escape room that we did in the sim lab. So we used the mannequin and we used various areas of the room in order to have the residents solve riddles and puzzles and questions related to neurology. Here the lights are on, but we had the lights off. It was very dark, very eerie, and like Halloween themed. And we got into the spirit of it and wore like zombie masks to scare the residents. It was very intimidating in a fun and interactive way. The residents really loved it. It was very hands-on, and they had to work as a team. That was another dynamic. So, of course, we get our clinical and our medical education portion, but they also have to learn how to work as a team and kind of not fight each other and beat each other up in order to get out of this scary room.
The other cool thing about escape rooms is you can actually do them virtually now too. COVID taught us so many things. We've actually done a couple where we were, synchronous, but meeting via Zoom like this, and people could actually go to a website and play against each other in real time, solving these puzzles and clues online. And as an educator, which all of you are on this call today, you can get free accounts for that. So I'm happy to share that information as well. Trucking right along, we're going to talk about board games next. So we've kind of covered the big stuff, the longitudinal games, the event days, escape rooms. Now we're going to get into board games. And again, I think you all mentioned several of the kind of classic games that we all know and love. We've created some of our own. This was one of our motivated senior residents a couple years ago who actually, simple as it looks, took off. She made this on a poster board with markers and some random tokens from other board games. And we grew it from this first implementation here to actually creating a little bit more formal. So she named it EM Mastermind. We created a better board you see there with spinners and cards. But again, the educational goals were ITE review. We had questions that were based on the topics that we wanted the learners to engage in or study. And then as they went through the game, getting different questions and moving their tokens along, they get that little interactivity piece as well. As Dr. McLean alluded to, we have a picture of her cranial pursuit. So I did want to zoom in. The picture got a little blurry, but if you look close there at the center, this is the Trivial Pursuit game board, which she turned into Cranial Pursuit to have a neurology-based review of emergency medicine content, which was so cool and creative. And you see the learners super engaged there. And obviously, this is like super professional quality. So to show you the scope, you can do it from everything from simple pen and paper on a poster board up to really cool things like this. Let your creativity run free. And the same thing, I couldn't find any great examples to share with Creative Commons images, but same thing online. There are a lot of resources, free resources, where you can build and create your own board game templates that you can either print out and play in real time together, or virtually as well. So if you are in the virtual Zoom meeting environment, you can still have learners log into a website and play a game synchronously as well with those same objectives in mind. And I'll turn it back over to Maria for our last bit here on our more simple, low resource games.
Right. So when we were trying to think of the name for this one, Simple Games, it was a little bit challenging because I don't mean simple by boring or easy. We just mean simple, that these are low resource. They're easy in the sense they're easy to implement, and they're not going to take a lot of time or resources in order to use. So this is kind of covering things that we've probably used more. So like Jeopardy, for example, is one of the ones. And there's online templates like we talked about. And you can just have the learners raise their hand if you would like. You can use Rosh review questions if you're kind of in a pinch or trying to do some board review with them. You can go ahead and use those types of questions. If you want to elevate it a little bit or make it slightly more fun, you can incorporate things such as buzzer systems, which we have here. We also have seen and used bingo. I like bingo for more content heavy, maybe more dry, passive material like immunology review, for example. And it can be so easy. It could be the lecture that you already have, the small group that you already have, and all you have to do is put the phrases that are in your lecture. And so the learners have to be actively listening in order to cross those off of their board. And then that makes sure that they're paying attention and that they're awake, especially, like I said, for some of this more content heavy information. Another one is crosswords. Lots of resources online for this one as well. So you can print it out. You can have it available as a QR code, email it to them. And then the website's basically created for you. This is good for more like biz buzz, definition, terminology type of content. And it's very flexible in terms of what you can use it for. And then the classic Kahoot, which if people haven't heard of it before, but I'm sure everyone has, it's been around for a little bit now. It's a trivia platform, which encourages participation with everyone's phone. Our residents like to get into it by creating funny names. They kind of poke fun at each other as well. And that gets everybody really into it. It's multiple choice questions like these. But then also there's the paid version now that has some fill in the blanks. You can include images, you can include different types of questions, true, false. There's lots of different variety for this. And then we have code names is another one. So this game, traditionally, you use one word clues in order to help the team guess the specific word while avoiding the incorrect options. You can switch out these words for medical terminology or clinical terminology to make it a little bit more engaging of a tool in education. And here's one of the versions that has been used. And then here is a periodic table style elements of a gamified curriculum, which kind of goes through the different types of game like Jeopardy, Bingo, Battleship, like we talked about. Things like Guess Who. Actually, recently I did a Guess Who on the different personality disorders, and I used AI to help me come up with characters like Little Mermaid to represent different personality disorders, and that's how they played Guess Who. You can do things like charades, escape rooms, and so it goes from very easy to very complex in the different types of games here.
All right, so let's bring it back. I know that was kind of like rapid fire, heavy hitting, throwing a lot of different things out there. We asked this question before, but now that we've kind of maybe prompted you a little bit and you've seen some of the examples, again, what games have you all used successfully or not? And then we can kind of, again, workshop some ideas or talk about next steps before we close out with some pearls and pitfalls here. So I'll give a couple seconds for, again, feel free to just mute and share, or if you want to place it in the chat as well, Maria can share for you.
I see charades as one.
Any major success stories, things that maybe you didn't expect that took off really well? Or on the contrary, maybe something that you got really excited about and didn't go as planned that you're willing to share?
In the ones that I've done, there's there's been a little bit of variability in the feedback regarding those games. Some folks have really liked the gamification ideas a lot better than others, and then some residents, like strangely, are just very traditional and want more lecture, which sometimes I'm a little surprised to hear that feedback, but a lot of them uh like sometimes they'll be split down the middle, but most of the time they'll be like 75% will be saying, oh, we love this style, and then the other 25% will be saying, we need a little bit more lecture to go along with this, or we recommend that you just completely replace it with a lecture. So I don't have any additional specific examples, but there is a little bit of variability in the feedback.
I agree. I think I've encountered that a little bit as well. I'm sure many people have. I think it is a little bit about building a culture too, because when you first come into a place and you're gonna, you know, uh, go from straight 5 hours of lecture every week to now doing these more interactive things, it's kind of natural for the adult learner to be like, we're gonna play games. Like I've been listening to lectures for 10 years now, and now we're gonna play games. It kind of gonna take a little buy-in. But as you start doing these things, kind of repeating, building it up over time, getting people excited about it, I have seen it kind of swing more and more. There's always going to be those one or two that you can't capture no matter what you do. But I think you can get the majority of your learners on board by just kind of repeating it, doing it, making it fun. The other thing we didn't really talk too much about, but I do have a couple slides I want to hit on is the cautious use of extrinsic motivators. We mentioned a couple times you heard us say like gift card or mug or shirt, right? Little things that get people enough engaged and enough interested to be like, oh, that's cool. But obviously, we're not giving them like a free shift or, a $50 gift card, anything crazy like that. It's just enough to kind of pique their interest and get them a little bit more interested and engaged, but not enough that it becomes all about winning and not about the educational objectives. So that's kind of the way we use those extrinsic motivators to hopefully ignite some intrinsic pursuits in the long run.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I've also encountered people who like you were saying, when I first started with Advent, maybe people hadn't played as many games. And so it was a little bit intimidating. And it's also intimidating to be put on the spot. We do a heads up, kind of like the phone that has the words on, like the buzzword, the game that has the buzzword on your phone, and you like play, you see people play it at the theme parks and stuff all the time. There's actually a free blank deck that you can do. And so we play things like that. And at first, the residents hated being on the spot. They would be like, oh my gosh, you give me so much anxiety. I'm sweating. Like, I hate this. And then now they're really into it. So I think it's just a little bit of understanding that, like this is fun, this is about learning, but it takes a little bit of time. There were a couple of people chiming in on the chat. One person asked how we're able to provide gift cards. They have restrictions on those at their institution. Yeah, we have, I think it just varies from institution to institution. Something that I like to do, which I think there's a couple of our residents on this call. This is my secret, so don't tell anyone, but I rack up my Starbucks points and then I use them to get the Starbucks mugs and I use those for prizes as well.
Yeah, I've done the same. I think, unfortunately, a lot of us have put in our own money and time, which of course I would never, your wellness is just as important as the learners. So not asking anybody to do that. You'd be surprised. It's kind of like a running joke in my program now that these little like 10-cent plastic trophies that I get from Amazon, literally I buy like 50 trophies for $5 or whatever and then print out a little label with whatever the award is, and stick it on there. It's so silly, so stupid. But then residents graduate and they're sharing pictures of their little wall of these silly plastic trophies that I got from Amazon that they've accrued over their residency time. So it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. In fact, it shouldn't be. It's just enough to get the little bit of bragging rights or something to pique their interest without going overboard or spending way too much money. Definitely don't want to do that.
And then the last one in the comment in the chat, this is a really good idea. I love it. And I might even steal it in the very near future. But EKG sort, you have 20 EKGs. They have to decide waiting room, cath lab, room next, or room immediately. And they can only put a certain number of EKGs in each spot. The team that gets the most EKGs correct wins. That's really good.
That's a great one. And if you haven't already done so, the next iteration, what you should do is, um, you know, make some pre-survey, post-survey, some kind of knowledge-based assessment. So after you've played this game and done the debrief, you actually have tangible results. You've made this into scholarship now. You can publish it and disseminate it, and then all of us can do the same thing. MedEd Portal is a great journal that loves to do stuff like this. International Journal of Emergency Medicine. Um, Love these type of interactive learning things where you can kind of share what you've developed and other people can utilize it. So if you're going to put in the time and the investment and the energy, yeah, make sure you're double, triple dipping. Do it, get feedback data for your portfolio, publish it, present it somewhere, hit all of those little elements. Like I alluded to, a couple final slides here, and then we'll open it up for questions. But again, really what we want to instill and build in these learners is that intrinsic motivation. And gamification is one of those strategies. We have seen, although there's not a lot of literature yet in gamification specifically, we do know that interactive educational strategies, gamification being one of them, simulation another one we know and love, they do build intrinsic learning. They build intrinsic motivation to adult learners to be more invested in their education. And then again, like we alluded to, with the cautious use of those extrinsic motivators, we can actually build on that motivation and make better adult learners out of this. I did want to throw in a couple. We've mentioned some of them, the pearls and pitfalls, like mistakes we've made along the way and learned from. Um, the first, I would say, the very first thing, as soon as you get the idea and you start to work on this, make sure you have in big, bold font your educational objectives. That should be driving the game you pick, how you design the game, how long the game should be. You really have to keep the educational objectives at the front of your mind, because what will happen is you get too excited about the game and then kind of lose sight of what the actual educational goal is. So print them out, make them bold, whatever it needs to be, revisit frequently as you're going about developing these games. Make it a clear point that the educational objectives are first and foremost. Number two, again, cautious use of those extrinsic motivators. The first year I did it, I took the team that won to Eddie V's. So like a nicer restaurant, and they got to eat and drink and have a good time. Oh, sorry, I cut out there for a second. And then it turned into like a bloodbath, as silly as it might sound. The next year, everybody's like trying to kill each other to get their free Eddie V's. So again, a $5 gift card, they're probably not going to kill each other for. That's okay. A candy bar, a little plastic trophy, whatever it may be. Pick something, interesting enough to get them engaged and involved, but not too much that they're really going to make it all about winning and not really care about the learning. And then probably the biggest of all, don't add to resident workload, right? We don't want to create these big, the longitudinal games. You don't want to make them be logging extra stuff or doing extra things beyond what's already required. We all know residents are super busy. They have a lot on their plates. They're dealing with working and learning and trying to have a little semblance of a life outside of all of that. So whatever we do create and build for them, make sure that it's what they're already doing. You're not really adding to this already full and overflowing plate. And the last one I didn't put on here, but I think I hear frequently from the more novice people doing gamification is know your time limits. If you have a 30-minute session with the learners, don't be trying to build a game of Monopoly, for instance, right? So know what you have, what time you have, what resources are available, how many learners there are, and I would say pilot, even if it's with, a couple medical students or some chief residents, whatever it may be, pilot your game or learn as you go with different iterations to make it the appropriate length to fit into that session within your conference or whatever it may be. And this is the last question I have for you. So we'll take it out with this and Q&A. But after all of this, what do you want to try? What are you interested in? What will you take away from this and build upon? And again, I'll say, don't go straight to the launch. I mean, yeah, do it. If you feel really motivated and you want to, great, go for it. But don't be discouraged by those really high resource and intensive games. You can see that there's very simple stuff that you could put together in an hour and do tomorrow and have great success. So hope you're able to take something away from that, and we'll happily take any questions now and leave up our emails and numbers there if you want to reach out in the future at any point to bounce ideas or collaborate. We love talking about this, love doing things. As you've seen, we've done a lot of stuff together between our programs. We'd love to bring more into the fold if you're willing to join in our craziness. Oh, sorry. Guess I should leave that up, and I'll let you guys monitor the chat, or again, just unmute and share. And otherwise, we'll let you all have the 7 or 8 minutes back.
Like Shane said, I love talking about games and I love hearing what people, I actually don't play that many games on my own, but I like creating games and transforming them. So if anyone wants to reach out and collaborate, I'm more than happy to. I also follow like Instagram accounts where they review games, and that's how I get ideas of different games I've never heard of. So that's another way to expose yourself to these cool new things out there.
I do want the info for the online escape room and like virtual conference options. So I was gonna bug you for those later on, but I definitely want to try those. I've never tried them before.
Absolutely. I've been saying, I've actually not only saying, I'm actually doing it. I'm just behind, but I'm building like a resource list for the novice gamification teacher. So it's going to have pages with just direct links to, here's Amazon, go get this, or here's a website, go do this. So definitely send me an email if you're interested in that. Like I said, some priorities with new resident orientation and stuff, but I'm hoping to have that done in the next month or so that I'm happy to share with everybody that's interested.
We have one person on the chat, Caroline, say, very interesting, a lot of good ideas. We need a community of game creator, game sharing ideas. I feel like I have a few games that I could either like send the templates for, or like even mail the board game to somebody, and we could do like an exchange or something like that. But maybe a lot of these games, like Caroline is saying, are just a matter of having some kind of a group or something where we can share what we've already done and expect a little bit of like game resources in return, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time.
Yeah, definitely encourage you to consider that scholarly element when you do those things as well, right? Multi-institutional feedback is way more valuable than just doing it with your own learners. So definitely share and make sure you have some kind of survey tool or evaluation method so that you can get some feedback and make this into something publishable and presentable as well.
Well, thank you both so much for coming today. This was an amazing session, as I figured it would be, and feel inspired personally. So thank you, and I'm really excited for the new academic year coming up, and let's show our new interns how fun we can be in terms of gamification in EM. So. All right, if no other questions, thank you again. Thanks everyone for hopping on the call. This has been great. Join us next month. I think the July session is still to be determined, but Danielle McClellan will be sending out the information as soon as possible. So other than that, have a great week, everyone.